in yourself. Well, I am so excited to bring in our next guest, Dorie Clark. Oh my gosh. If you don't know Dorie, I don't know how you don't know Dorie. Dorie is the author of 3 books, including one of my favorites, Entrepreneurial You. She is not just an amazing mentor of mine. She's a dear, dear friend. One of the I feel so lucky that I'm kind of in her back pocket. I say I'm in her inner circle. I don't know if I am, but I'm going to say that I am. Let me give you a little bit of a background on who Dorie is, and we're going to do a Q&A with her. But again, with the Q&A, please put in your questions for Dorie. She is to have access. She's here to share her knowledge. So if you have a question, especially around Dorie is the one that has already been, for years, has told me you need multiple streams of revenue. And I'm like, yeah. And now we all need multiple streams of revenue. So if you have a question right now for Dorie, like, I know I need to do something different, and there's no crazy, silly question. You should only know the questions I've asked Dorie in the back, quietly offline. So please, write your questions in for Dorie. I'll be managing those. Let me tell you about Dorie before we bring her on the screen. Dorie Clark helps individuals and companies get their best ideas heard in a crowded, noisy world. And it's really noisy right now. So how do we get our ideas up and out and be of service? She has been named one of the top 50 business thinkers in the world by Thinkers 50, and she was honored as the #1 communication coach in the world. #1 communication coach in the world, people, by the Marshall Goldsmith Leading Global Coaches Awards. And more. And one of the top 10 communication professionals in the world by Global Gurus. Now, this is where I have to not do my compare and despair, because I'm just going to take a nap and put my covers over. But also, she is the author of Entrepreneurial You, which was named one of Forbes' top 5 business books of the year, as well as Reinventing You and Stand Out, which was named the #1 leadership book of the year by Inc. magazine. Here's the thing about Dorie that I want you to know as I bring her on. Not only is she brilliant, she is kind, she is giving, she is the most amazing connector I have ever seen in the world. And when you meet someone, you go, how did you meet? Oh, through Dorie Clark. How did you meet? Oh, through Dorie Clark. So Dorie, welcome.
Hi, Petra. It is so good to see you. And clearly, I think you are winning the live stream backdrop contest. I'm like, wow, like was this coronavirus epidemic engineered by you so that you can, show everyone exactly how to be on a Zoom call or on a Facebook Live? That looks so good. I am so impressed.
Thank you. You know what, Dorie, it's so interesting. People have reached out, as we all do, right? How are you doing right now? And I work from home a lot, so that hasn't really changed that much. But I think what has changed for me, Dorie, is, we're good friends. It's like I often worry about, oh my God, what if it's not perfect? Or what if it, but because of what we're in right now, who cares? But how can it be of service? And that's where I think your message comes in so importantly. We want to be of service. We want to stand out. We want to reinvent ourselves. But where do we begin? So in this new world, Dorie, we've got many areas we could go with you. What would you advise someone right now? The first thing to think about to get out of that crowded space of, I don't know what to do, and just get started.
Absolutely. Well, this is an area, certainly, Petra, where you excel. I mean, the perfection detox is kind of the Bible for this time right now. I mean, we're at a place where all of a sudden, all the things that we would have probably been mortified about before, like, oh, I don't know, like, there we go, a cat, randomly in the background. That's right now, that's just value added. It's like, oh, can I give, I'm moving the wrong way. Yeah. Can I give him more space? This is Philip. This is Philip's breakout moment where all of a sudden he's like, this is my chance to build a following. So he has been crashing every webinar, every live stream. He wants to get noticed. If you are a Hollywood agent, if you're in Hollywood, Philip wants to talk to you. So I think, the rules have definitely changed in terms of, kids and partners and pets and whatever. We all know we're winging it as best we can. But when it comes to creating multiple revenue streams in the current environment, I think there's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one is this is a great building opportunity. Everybody's at home. Everybody's probably got a little bit more time than usual. I mean, certainly if if your specialty is crisis relations or something like that, you're probably extra busy. But for a lot of people, the things they were intending to do, trips or projects or whatever, they may be canceled, they may be on hold. This is a fantastic opportunity to actually create content and share your ideas. And here's the key thing. If you want to develop multiple revenue streams, you need to have a following of some kind. It doesn't have to be huge, but people need to know your ideas so that they will know what you stand for and know what you have to offer. And sometimes people are sometimes surprised by this, although we shouldn't be, which is, oh my goodness, why is it that I'm having trouble attracting a following? The thing you need to do is put your ideas out there so that people have something to wrap their arms around, so that they can rally around it and say, yes, this woman is speaking to me. I want to hear more from her. I want to spend more time with her. I want to sign up for that course. I want to share her material. So, this is the time, write those articles, start that podcast, do those things. I have a framework called the Recognized Expert Methodology, where over the past decade, I've really tried to understand what it takes to become a recognized expert in your field. And the first building block is content creation, because you cannot be known for your ideas if you never share them and no one knows what they are.
I think, Dorie, you just touched on something so good. We can't be known, right, unless we share our ideas. And yet people are so terrified of waiting, less now, but even more so. There's two things going on, right? I'm going to wait till it's perfect before I share it, which we know that will never happen. And then right now it's like, I don't know which idea to share first. Any suggestions on how do people dig down and know what should they be sharing? And feel free to answer any of these questions as they come in. I'll take the software one later, but maybe organizing platforms or people, whatever you want, Dorie, by Whitney or Mona.
Yeah. Great questions, guys. So in terms of, too many cognitive inputs. I'm still learning this live stream thing. Wait, what was your question, Petra? Let's start there.
Let me start with one. All right. This is also me too learning it. I'm juggling Dorie in the chat and then my own brain that's going, for someone who has ideas, and I'm seeing this a lot, we are very creative people, right? So many ideas, but we don't take action. How do we know which idea to put action behind?
Right. Okay. So the first most important part. This is if I'm writing like the friendly addendum to the to the perfection detox. What I'd say here is, if you have a lot of different ideas, you're not sure which one to start with. The answer is, who cares? Who cares? The answer is, you pick one, like literally throw a freaking dart. Does not matter, and start with that. I think where people get hung up is that, oh, it's got to be the right one. It's got to be the perfect one. You will never know. You are not in the mind of your audience. Like ish, you're in the mind of your audience ish. You kind of know what they might like, but nobody knows what is really going to connect until you put something out into the marketplace. The trick is you do lots of little tests, little things. Don't write a whole book about something without knowing if people care. Write an article, spend an hour on it. If it doesn't work, fine, move on to the next thing. But I will give you a real life example for me. My first book, and I do have props, I got organized here. My first book is called Reinventing You. And I had been wanting, this was like about 10 years ago now, I had been really wanting to write a book. This was an important goal for me. I spent about 6 months working on 3 different book proposals. Okay. So I was like all in on this. I was coming up with all these different ideas. I'm like, one of these is going to work. And the truth was, none of them worked. Publishers rejected every single one. They did not care. But I ended up simultaneously starting to write for the Harvard Business Review, which was not something that I was really aiming at, but I kept hearing from the publishers, like, you're not famous enough, you need to build a platform. So I'm like, okay, I guess I have to start blogging. And I wrote an article about professional reinvention. This was not in any way like a big grand strategy. It wasn't like, oh, I knew everyone cares about reinvention. Literally, it was like an article I could write. So I'm like, great, I'll try to write that. I wrote this article. For some reason, that one was one that connected with a lot of people. I had no foreknowledge that would be the case. But once I saw it getting traction, I'm like, all right, I'll put my chips on this. And I ended up being able to write a book about it, which became my first book from Harvard Business Review Press, Reinventing You. But the key is I didn't know that that's what worked. And so if you're not sure which idea to pursue, literally does not matter. Just do something and you will get data.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I'm learning right now, Dorie. It's like you just try different things, see what works, and see also writing. I'm trying different writing articles, different venues, different avenues, and then the ones that work. And I love the idea that you said test it first. Test it first. I think and there's no one sharing with you, like no one, we don't share overnight all the things that have gone wrong, right? That long journey, all the rejections. But then no reason is always overnight success. With Story, a couple questions. How might you suggest people go about building awareness for their new business?
Sorry, the sound got a little muffled, Patrick.
I'm looking at right now. Hold on. Ooh, hold on. I'm going to remove Sharia. Let me see. Can you hear me now?
I can
Okay.
very well.
I think we had someone in the waiting room. And you hear me now? Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Let me ask this question again. How might you suggest we go about building awareness?
Yes. So in terms of building awareness, I mean, there's some low-hanging fruit, right? So at a very basic level, when you're starting something, when you're starting as a way of sort of building your brand, building your platform, in the early days, it's going to be slow going, right? But the crucial thing to remember is the principle of exponential growth, which unfortunately we're all becoming very aware of right now with the coronavirus. And so you see something, and for like months and months, it's like, oh, well, there's one case, there's two cases, like, no, not a thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's 50, it's 100, and it's doubling, right? And so the thing is, most slow developing phenomena like your platform, kind of like that as well. So for the first number of months, even the first number of years, it's like you get one follower, you get two followers, and it feels depressing because it feels like, oh, no one's paying attention. Oh, this is taking so long. But the truth is, there's an exponential principle underneath it. And you have to keep going and you have to keep persisting, because at a certain point, you are going to gain enough traction so that it really can, when it starts doubling overnight and it's 50 and it's 100 and it's 500 and it's 1,000, then you are rocking with your platform. So the question is, how can you, in the small ways, the low-hanging fruit ways, create that principle of exponential growth early on? So some very basic things. If you're creating content, if you're working hard with your podcast, your blog, your video, whatever you're doing, your articles, literally, number one, put it in your signature file of your email address, because many people who are talking to you in some way, it could be a potential client, could be you're emailing with your high school friend, they're not necessarily really clued in. They may not even necessarily know what you're doing now, but if you have links to articles and assets that you've created, it gives them a sort of ambient awareness way to check in and to see what you're doing and say, oh, I didn't know she did that. That's kind of cool. And, put it, literally in my email signature file, I have a thing to get people to subscribe to my newsletter. Otherwise, that just wouldn't normally occur to a lot of people. So that's number one. Number two is you want to think about, okay, how can I make this useful in the short term? Because the crucial thing, again, if something's going to really achieve virality, you can't give up. That's the most important principle. It doesn't work if you give up 3 months in because, oh, I only have 25 subscribers. You got to keep it going long enough to sort of attain liftoff. So you have to say, well, what are the benefits now, even if I don't have massive scale? So some of the benefits of creating content might include the fact that it makes sales easier to close. What I mean by that is if you write an article that addresses a common problem that your potential clients have, and then, hey, guess what? You have a conversation with a potential client and you're able to say to them, oh, I just wrote an article about that. Let me send it to you. It's not that it's reaching 100,000 people. It doesn't have to. If you send it to that targeted person and they read it and say, wow, that's exactly what I needed to hear. That's so helpful. It makes them that much more likely to be able to say, whoa, well, clearly she's dealt with this before. Let me hire her. There's a real sales advantage to that. And if you're using your platform to interview people, there is a clear networking benefit that happens not 10 years down the road. The networking benefit happens today because you're interviewing people, you're building relationships, you're starting off on the right foot by, as they say, adding value, and that's positive.
Yeah, I love that. Mo loves the idea of the signature line, and I actually saw that from you too. We're going to get a couple of questions here, but Dorie, I heard you speak a while ago, and I thought it was so good, and it's going to like just ease people's minds, right? So we think there's this overnight success. And you had spoken about it's kind of like underground. There's all this stuff you're doing underground. I think it's almost like we think it's going to take 6 months, a week. And it's like, no, this is the long game. But now's the time to get into that long game. And it kind of does this, no one can see it. And then it does that. Can you just share a little bit about, I just thought it was so real and honest instead of saying, become an overnight success and, 10 ways to like rock your world in a week. It's just like, yeah, no.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, for me, where this really got hammered home around the question of exponential growth is there's a couple of books actually that have been written in the past few years by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler. One is called Bold and one is called Abundance. And they are about exponential technologies. So in their case, what they're really focusing on is things, the kind of sexy Silicon Valley stuff that you read about, like self-driving cars and AI and 3D printing and stuff like that. And what they are talking about, which I think is very valuable for all of us, even in, say, less scientific professions, is that for a long time, like AI and whatever, the people who did that, they were considered kind of losers, right? Because like there's people who started doing AI in the 70s and it didn't go anywhere. Everybody's like, oh, this is so ridiculous, blah, blah. Oh yeah, AI is really going to work, and now AI is the hottest thing in the world. But the truth is, all along, there was exponential growth. It was just under the surface. It is in what Diamandis and Kotler called the deception phase. And the deception phase is that if you are looking at it with your naked eye, you're like, that line looks flat. That's not going anywhere. And you just think, whatever, it's probably going to continue on this flat line and not go anywhere forever. And then it spikes up and people who have not been paying attention are like, whoa, what happened? And that's what looks like overnight success. It is not. It's been going on since the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or, whatever. But it was just under the surface. And it is very much like that for our careers as well. There is often a moment of sort of exponential growth, but it's not like it's a lightning strike and God suddenly says, yes, you shall be tapped. It is that you have been tilling the ground for quite a while before then in your own deception phase. And that is how you enable the seeds to be planted to allow for your ultimate exponential growth.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that, Dorie, because it was so refreshing for me because I'm around incredible thought leaders like yourself, like Jenny Blake, who's going to be on tomorrow. And we see this bit, right? Because that's how I was aware of you, because you had done the hard work. And I just want people to know, even with myself, people go, oh, how did you rebrand yourself into now speaking and welcome to the New York Sirens, speaking and all of that? And I'm like, that was 3 or 4 years and I'm still not there. A couple of questions I want to bring in from the audience. Lori, yes, this will be replayed and it will be up on my feed and also on everyone else's feed. I'll be sending them their material. So this will be up for the long game.
Yeah, and I want to interrupt for a minute, Petra.
Yeah.
Here's another tip for everybody, and we're going to practice it in real time. Right? So okay. One important way to grow your platform is to remind people. We assume like, oh, people will do these things, but we have to be very explicit with our instructions. So I'm going to say, I'm assuming because you're on Petra's Facebook live feed that you are following Petra on Facebook. However, have you, for instance, followed Petra on LinkedIn? Have you followed Petra on subscribe to her YouTube channel? If you haven't, right now, open a new window. You can do this. Go follow Petra on LinkedIn. Follow her.
Not YouTube, because there's nothing there.
Okay. Well, that's okay. You can follow me also. You can follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. Also on Instagram, again, if you're a Hollywood talent agent or you just like cats, follow me, especially on Instagram, because Philip the cat is on there quite frequently. So we got to do the cross-platform promotion and remind people to do that because they wouldn't necessarily occur to them, but it's very valuable. And if those people like your content and they want to see more of it, it's great for them too. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you're so great at too, Dorie. And let's talk about repurposing content a little bit, and then we'll wrap up with one more question, because this is one thing you're so good at, and this is where I make a lot of errors. I'll do a podcast, and then I'll do an article, and then I'll do something, and I don't connect the dots. And now I'm just beginning to learn, like, okay, so this is why I'm doing it on Be Live, so I can capture just the audio and the video, and then I can get a transcript and all of that. But with that, with posting online, you're probably the wrong person to ask. How often do you post online? Because you know how to write more articles than anyone. But if someone's deciding, yeah, okay, articles would be a great way for me to test myself, start getting out there because I love to write. How often should people be posting right now?
Sure. Yeah, good question. And I just see another sort of technical question here. Sorry for my officey lingo, Betsy. Betsy says, I don't understand what you mean by a signature line.
Oh, cool.
A signature line in your email is like, there's usually like a text block that you have where, you're like, hi, Petra, I'm a big fan. Betsy. But then underneath Betsy, you probably have like, I don't know, your phone number or your title or your company or your address or whatever. And that is the block of text where you can also put in and subscribe to my amazing newsletter or download my free whatever. And you can do it there. So anyway, so to answer your question, Petra, and I believe it was also asked by some of your followers, which is why you're asking it, which is great, is about the frequency of posting. So I would say the correct frequency is, in the beginning, the correct frequency is whatever you can commit to on a regular basis, because regular effort, even if it is not all the time, is better than sporadic effort. So right now you might say, oh, I can write all the time. I can write every day. And, it's great. That's amazing. But if you write 6 articles in the next week and then you don't write another article for the next 18 months, it's not going to be quite so effective. Consistency is key. So this is my whole principle, right, of being a vegetarian. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a vegetarian, but let me tell you how I did it. I admire vegans, man. I admire them. That is healthy. That is committed. But I realized that would be hard for me to keep up. So I said, what is the thing that I can do that I can commit to and be manageable? And, with all my travel and everything like that. And I said, you know what? I can be vegetarian. I can do that. And so I have been a vegetarian since I have been 13 years old. So that is something I've been able to keep up. And similarly, when it comes to content, you need to ask yourself, well, what's manageable? Not so much that you burn yourself out. So I would say if you haven't been creating content at all, try once a month to write an article. If you've been writing an article once a month, well, you know what? Try it every 2 weeks or maybe even once a week. I think ultimately, if we can get ourselves to write an article once a week, that's amazing. That's a great place to be. But don't go from 0 to 60, right? Because that's sort of a recipe for burnout. Do what you can do, commit to it, implement the regularity. And then the good news is that, as Petra was talking about, you can leverage it in different ways. You can take that one article and say, well, what can I do with this? Well, maybe there's a really great quote that the person said, so I can tweet out that quote and, link to their handle. Or maybe I can take a screenshot of me interviewing them, and then I can post that screenshot on Instagram and I can link to the interview. Or maybe there's 3 really great tips that the person shared, and I can do a 1-minute video and post it on Facebook or post it on LinkedIn, and I can summarize the 3 tips really fast. So just think about, how can I do one thing? This is something that I actually talk about in my other book, Stand Out. I have a whole section on how to leverage content in this book. But in Stand Out, I talk about how can you do one thing and then leverage it 10 different ways.
Awesome. Let's talk about that in a moment, about standing out, Dorie, and then we'll do one question from the audience, and then I'll send you on your way, because you've probably got 20 more of these lined up, knowing you. And thank you so much. I just adore you so much. Talk about stand out, right? This is a time when we are reimagining how we want to show up in the world. And it's also very, very noisy right now. Everyone's, we're all trying to push our business, right? Because we all have to keep a roof over our head and of service. When everyone is trying to push their new business, especially now, how do we even begin to stand out?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that actually paralyzes a lot of people because they will often manage to talk themselves out of it. They say, "Well, now's not the time. No one would pay attention, no one would hear me, and therefore, they don't end up doing anything." So I think it is important to get past that. Ultimately, the most important thing is to get started and to keep it up. That's at a very basic level, and I think we all understand. I mean, your followers, I think especially, are probably, they vibe with you for a reason, which is that they are thoughtful, heartfelt people. So they understand that like now is not the time to be like, doing some kind of hard sell, blah blah blah. You're everything's going to collapse unless you buy this thing. And for one day only, it's 20% off. Buy it now. Like nobody wants the sort of hard sell sleaze right now. But I think the question is just how can we be useful? So the closer we can stay to our customers, and if we don't necessarily have customers, then we say our ideal customers, our ideal clients, the better. What is on their mind? What are they thinking about? And what is the intersection where we can provide something that would legitimately be useful to those people? So, for instance, yesterday I was doing a live stream with another friend. This is a guy named Andrew Sobel, and we were having. And Andrew is actually someone. See, look, props. This is a good tip too. So I wrote this book, Entrepreneurial You. And we both just, all the cool kids, right? If you want to be cool, you need to have this and show it on all your live streams. That's the takeaway here. Just like me and Petra. But in Entrepreneurial You, I wrote about Andrew and his best strategies here. But anyway, Andrew has a new book coming out next week. Kind of tough timing to release a book, so I wanted to do a live stream with him. But his book, it actually is about a kind of relevant thing. It's called "It Starts with Clients," and it is about how do you build and maintain client relationships, which is important always, but it is especially important in times like this, where this is your lifeblood, right? I mean, God willing, there's going to be a point where the economy turns back on again, and you want to have stronger relationships at the end of it rather than weaker ones. And so, if you can just stay in touch and understand what people are going through, and say, all right, like what can we do? And so, for Andrew and I, it was actually very helpful to do this live stream, just like Petra is doing with her audience, because since I work with a lot of people that are entrepreneurs or they're consultants or coaches or solopreneurs or whatever, client relationships is a very important top of mind thing. And so by doing this free webinar that we did on LinkedIn, and you can follow me on LinkedIn if you want to find out about more of them, because I'll be doing more. So see, meta here, we're connecting the dots. Then that was a way to be able to stay top of mind, to keep relating to people, but to sort of meet them where they're at and try to be helpful.
Awesome. Dorie, can you just spell out his name? Marissa's trying to find him on LinkedIn. And
yeah. So the guy that I did the LinkedIn Live with yesterday, and you can actually, if you go into my LinkedIn feed, you can find it, or actually just search. It's now up on YouTube. But his name is Andrew Sobel, and it's Sobel. His new book is called "It Starts with Clients."
Okay. As we begin to wrap this up, because I could talk to you all day. That's just being selfish. This is below. You can see. Oh, hold on. 1 second. Let me just get that off and change that. 1 second, Dorie. First error of the day, not the last, I am sure. Here we go. There we go. Oh, this is talk about juggling balls, let me tell you, Dorie. So anyway, you can get Dorie's, she has an amazing assessment at dorieclark.com/entrepreneur, but you definitely want to follow her on LinkedIn. She's one of the smartest, kindest, generous people I know. Last question. Someone asked, I think this is a really good one. If you had one thing to put in your signature line, what would it be? Because some people say, should it be an article? Or I would imagine, I don't know, I'd imagine it'd be a place for people to opt in so you can get their contact information to stay in touch. What would you say?
Petra, you have drunk the Kool-Aid successfully. That's excellent. Yes, that is what I would say. I mean, ultimately, so if you're using the signature line of your email address, there's different things that you can do, that you might want to be optimizing for. Obviously, it varies by person, but in general, I would say a very good prescription is to get people to opt into whatever your lead magnet is. And if you are not familiar with that terminology, it is the valuable offering, such as an ebook or an assessment or whatever, for which people exchange their email address. And the reason that you want to do that is that however great social media platforms are, Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever, times can change, and they either might throttle your access to your followers because, hello, they're publicly traded, and so they want you to be paying to access those followers. So it's precarious in that way, but also just things get unpopular. Like you could be the coolest kid in town on MySpace, and it does not help you very much right now. So the thing that you maintain, though, is your email list, because that is something that is unmediated by a third party. So building that is always important. I would say another possible thing that you can do, although I would say even then the email list is probably more important, but a related possible thing is that you can use your email signature file as a form of social proof. And so, it's not to say you couldn't have multiple things in your signature file. I do. In fact, I will tell you what mine has just for kicks. It says, so my little signature file, I got a lot of things in here. Actually, I've got top 50 business thinkers in the world. This is underneath my name. Number 1 communication coach in the world. This is good. The branding work, as Petra said, both of these things. Join 57,000 plus subscribers with impeccable taste and download the recognized expert evaluation toolkit. That's one of my opt-ins. If you want it, you can get it at dorieclark.com/toolkit, and then subscribe to my weekly LinkedIn newsletter. And there is a link to that as well. So I use it for those things. But for instance, I have an executive coaching client that I work with who has started writing for Forbes and Harvard Business Review. And he has a thing, he's like, read my latest article in Harvard Business Review. And then there's a link to that because, yes, it's helpful for people to read that article, but mostly, he wants people to know he writes for Harvard Business Review, which is a good thing to do. And it doesn't sound like obnoxious, like he's not thumping his chest like, oh, let me tell you about me. But in a subtle way, he's putting it out there. So if you have something really good like that, then you want to add it there too, so that people in kind of the ambient way can become aware that you're awesome.
No, I love that. And I think what I might do, Dorie, is like, I've been bugging you, like, where do I post? And I finally got interviewed for Entrepreneur magazine, which is huge. And it was around resilience, which is such a buzz topic right now. So I'm actually going to change my signature line because everyone knows where they can find me. I'm going to put that in. So, Dorie, we could speak to you all day. Everyone is loving you. I am so grateful for you. They can stay in touch with you at dorieclark.com/toolkit for one, dorieclark.com/entrepreneur for another. Follow Dorie on LinkedIn. Follow Philip and Heath on Instagram.
Yes, and they do not have their own account. It is still under mine. Dorie Clark is the handle, but yes, they are the stars probably a good 3/4 of the time. So thank you for that shout out. Philip is this is the moment for him. He has been telling me, he's like, Mom, I've been quarantined for 4 years. That's kind of how it is when you're a cat. But now I'm gonna break out. People are gonna find me. So yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to watch.
Oh my God, Dorie, I love you. I'm going to keep my ears out for a Hollywood producer for cats, and I will see you. Well, I'll see you online again, but hopefully I can get to see you in real person and give you a hug.
I know, very soon. We're not all that far apart in New York, but of course we are locked down. I look forward to seeing you and giving you a hug very soon, Petra. Love you too, and good luck on your very busy live streaming kind of day.
Thank you so much, Dorie. Bye.
Bye.